Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Welcome, everyone. This is USA Global TV and Radio, and I'm Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck. And yes, I'm still here a day after turning 60. It was quite a celebration. So thank you to each and every one of you who reached out to me. I put this on social media, but I stopped counting after 2,000 different people had reached out to me. So my heart is absolutely full, and I just want you to know how much you mean to me. Our show today is A Woman's Prerogative, and our topic is all about the power of human connection. What does this even mean? It can mean many things and something different to each person. Let's bring out our panel and see what they have to say. Joining us from London, it's Dr. Madeline Chan. Yeah, hello.
Hello, Dr. Jacalyn.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's been a good day.
Fantastic. Also joining us from London, it's the Harley Street stress expert who will be moving very soon. Caroline HEWARD, welcome.
Hello.
Hello.
Good to be here.
Good to see you. And on the other side of the world, JENETTA Barry in the Epiphany Process. Hello, welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Good to see you. And our dear friend and sister, MARISKA joining us from New Zealand. Hello.
Hello, hello.
So nice to see you, ladies. And I just really look forward to the show. We always have a great conversation. It's kind of just like sitting around a table and just having a chat. So thanks for making the time, because I know we're in different time zones all over the world. And finally, we're back to BST. I hate those 2 weeks that were GMT. I hate that. So good to be back on our regular schedule. So our topic is the power of human connection. And the reason that I selected this is because something recently happened, which was I was with my family and my great niece, little baby Ella, who's so sweet. She's 1.5, and she was on the other side of the room. And I just said, will you come here and give me a hug? And of course, she wouldn't do it. And then one of the family members said, everybody needs a hug, which is so true. That power of the human touch, relating and connecting with someone, whether it's across a screen, across a table, next to you in bed, whatever it might be, it's really important. So I'm going to start off with our expert, Caroline, who knows all about this topic. What does this mean to you, the power of human connection in your work and also to you personally?
Well, for me personally, especially during our time that we were in lockdown, and I didn't really realize how important it was until the hugs weren't there. When we weren't allowed to connect and go out and see people, and I live alone, that connection in terms of touch, physical touch, hug, and even that physical connection in terms of being in the same room with someone was completely missing from my life. And it made me feel quite depressed. It made me feel very anxious, and it made me feel like sort of the days became nights. So it was very challenging for me, because I'm used to having that power of human connection, physical human connection, human touch. And I'll always reach out and say, I'd love a hug, or let's do a hug. So that is one of my things when I meet people. So it's very, very important to have that. And despite all of my knowledge, I still felt that missing connection. And that is, I've read some work about this social interaction and human physical connection. And there was an experiment done in the 50s, and I believe it was with the CIA, and they took out people connecting in the external world, and they were left to their own devices, isolated in their own homes, and it caused depression and anxiety. And when they were then allowed to come out, they were feeling not comfortable in going out, almost that they'd become restricted internally. And when you give someone a hug, you actually release something called, it's a happy hormone called oxytocin, and it's that love drug, it's known as, which makes you feel amazing. So there is a lot there to share in terms of, we need human physical connection, and we need that physical interaction. Even if somebody doesn't hold us or hug us, we still need the physicality of being in a social experience with another physical person, because it strips us from what we're truly meant to feel as human beings.
Thank you, Caroline. A lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Really appreciate that. I'm also wondering for our friends who are lovers of the furry creatures, and instead of having children, for example, they have pets. Can we have this type of connection with animals as well?
Oh, yes, we do. Sometimes it's even stronger with a dog or a cat or some physical animal, primarily because the animal doesn't talk back, doesn't have an ego, doesn't have stuff or an agenda, and that's why it's pure. It's like a baby is very pure. There's no agenda with an animal at all.
And no questions.
Where
are you?
That's if you don't own a dachshund. If you own a dachshund, they have attitude.
We've got a comment.
We'll also have something to say about that.
Yeah. Oh, Leighton.
Leighton Benta in the house. Thank you so much for being here with us. Plenty of love sent in the building. That is beautiful. Mariska, you were going to say something when I first posed the question about, can we have that kind of connection with animals? What were you going to say?
Well, definitely we do have them. And as JENETTA pointed out with her dog, well, cats have the same sort of intricacies about the amount of attention they might lavish on you or not lavish on you. So for one of mine, he will be very aggressive about the fact that he wants attention. When he wants attention, he will literally come and sit next to you and first slightly nibble your arm so that you can notice that he's there. And then if you still don't give him any attention, he'll get a little bit more aggressive and start biting with teeth. So yes. And then the other one will absolutely only get attention on her own terms. It doesn't matter if you want attention. If she does not want attention, there's no way that she will come near you. But if she does feel like attention, she will definitely come and sway her body all over you so that she can get attention, as long as you do not hold her tight. She does not like that. So yes, animals also have their little quirks around how they love to connect with us as humans. And to Caroline's point on being isolated during COVID, one of the things that I've read recently is that even through our interactions on screen, we can secrete said hormone by our speech. So for instance, Dr. Jacqueline, that I said that I would love to give you a hug, a warm, tight hug. That only saying it, not actually having the physical thing, but saying that that's what I would like to do and really meaning it, makes you feel the same in a lesser degree, but we still secrete the same hormones. So if you are not physically able to touch said person that you would love to touch, at least tell them what you would like to do, and they will still have the sensation.
So a lot of places I could go with those comments, but
I totally resonate there, Dr. Jacqueline.
Wait, Jeanette knows exactly what I'm thinking. Dr. Chen, what were you saying?
Yeah, I was just thinking, do you think it's important when you're going to give someone a hug, you actually ask permission to give them a hug, saying, do you mind if I give you a hug? Or do you actually go in there and go, just go to a person, like somebody that you know, it's different. Hey, girlfriend. Hey, soul brother, whatever. Oh, hug, family. But if it's a stranger and you feel that a hug will be would bring some sunshine, but do you actually ask permission? Do you mind if I give you a hug? Or does that give them the opportunity to say, no, I don't want a hug? So therefore they won't receive that happy, that happy zone through your vibration of hugging them and making them feel, it's okay, it's safe, it's good, it's a good feeling. I put that question.
Yeah,
to
I think
everybody.
That's a great question. I'll just answer it with, I think you should ask for permission to give someone a hug, and also, have you been tested and can we see the results to make sure that and I think I shared this story before, but many, many years ago when I was in corporate, I closed a big deal with a client and I immediately went up to her and gave her a huge hug because we were also friends outside of work, and she was furious because her boss was there, the vice president, and it showed that we were friends. So I learned a lot from that in business and personal, that you really should always ask, because you don't know how somebody's feeling and maybe they don't want you to touch them. I know people who don't like to be touched. Caroline, you're raising your hand. You don't like to be touched?
Well, I love to be touched. What I would say is that absolutely right, Dr. Chan. It is totally important to ask permission. I usually say, do you mind if I give you a hug? Especially if I feel the person would benefit from a hug, I usually ask, especially now in our changed world times. I used to say, I'd love to give you a hug. Is that okay? Previously. Now I always say, is it okay if I give you a hug? Or do you mind if I give you a hug? So it's prevalent in our changed times to ask permission.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Jeanetta, something you wanted to say on this subject?
Yeah, I find that if you're in a heart-centered space, you give off a lot of spontaneous heart-centered love. That also puts you in a place of being able to sense whether a person wants to be hugged or not. I don't say it's 100% accurate, but I have noticed that when I'm in that heart-centered space, which isn't always because I'm a human being, but when I am, it's easier to judge whether that person is a huggable person, because some people just don't like it, or whether they're in that space time to be hugged. And I'm not saying one shouldn't ask, but I do think that intuitive side, when your heart is open, makes a big difference with that.
Thank you, Jeanette. Wow, that's a wonderful insight, being in the heart space. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. The question that I have, if we go back to relationships, let's say with animals, I've also known people like this, they have better relationships with their pets than they do with people. And sometimes they become, I don't want to say obsessed with their pets, but they're taking their pets everywhere. And they're bringing them to dinners, they're bringing them to what are your thoughts about this? Is this a type of connection that is healthy?
I live with someone that we're not going to mention his name, but I live with someone.
His name is no.
That takes Teddy out everywhere. And Teddy ends up going to the pub where normal or other dogs are not allowed to.
Oh my God, Teddy's a drinker.
Teddy goes to the cafe bars where dogs are not allowed in, and it says only dogs on a guide. It's almost, Teddy carries this vibration that's almost as near as people look at them and go, that dog's human. That dog has human traits. It's so funny.
Is Teddy at a bar stool?
Yeah, he sits actually, you know, in a cafe, like a cafe bench inside. He'll sit there.
Wow.
And
Interesting.
I remember I took him
Is
to
he
the pub.
smoking? No.
Wouldn't surprise me one day. I tell you, wouldn't surprise me. But I tell you, I was in a pub, right? And it said that the dogs are not allowed on the table, on the seats, and they're not allowed, they can just stay on the floor. Teddy was so clever that in between the table and the floor was a little ledge underneath the table. He found his space there. So he wasn't at the level of the other dogs that were on the floor. He wasn't on the bar stools or the bench. He found on the table underneath, just part of the table, a little ledge, and he jumped on there.
Can we speak with Teddy? Is Teddy available?
He's downstairs, but I will bring him one day.
Let's interview him now.
Yeah.
I think so. I
So-
should do the diary of Teddy.
You should. That'd be hilarious. So, of course, we're not judging the owner of the dog, whose name is, and we're not judging Teddy. What are our thoughts about this? We've seen people bringing dogs to places you don't ordinarily see dogs. How do we feel about this? And do we do this ourselves?
Well, I've done it. I've done it when my kids were younger. I had a Dachshund and it was a cross Jack Russell, and they went everywhere with us. Absolutely, they were part of the family. So I used to have the Dachshund would sit on the back ledge of the car, so she looked like one of those dogs. And Dudu, who was a cross Jack Russell, he looked like Snowy from Tintin. He used to sit on my lap and put his paws on the driving wheels. So there's the driving. It looked like Dudu was driving. And I'd stop at the shops and people would say, "Oh, we saw you taking the kids to school this morning." Infamous. So I have done it, and they used to go camping with us, and they used to go everywhere. And I think there is a part, if I go on a self exploration, there was a part of me that in that time so much was happening. It was at the time that we were dealing with Jenny. It was like an endorsement of naturally being wanted and needed and loved without having to try 100 different ways to be that. And I do think they were a sort of therapy, especially for me. I don't know about the rest of the family, but certainly for me. And I mean, they slept in the bed, and they were the family. They were 2 extra children.
Thanks for sharing that. That's
Furry family. Furry family.
So, what about whether or not you've done this yourself or what Jenetta just shared? Mariska?
I haven't personally done it myself. And
Mariska, you sound different.
My voice changed. Sorry. Oh dear. So Jenetta, your story reminded me of a dog my mom had. Now, it was a very small little dog. The whole dog was about this big. I do not know what type of breed it was. And the dog's name was Tiger because it had the heart of a tiger. And it went with my mom literally everywhere. It went to work with her. It drove with her. When she was driving, it would sit at her neck. If she got out of the car, because it didn't go into the shops, but if she had to get out of the car, that dog will go ballistic until she gets back. So yes, for the rest of the family, us kids, of course, it was a little bit strange sometimes with said dog, but they had a really, really, really close relationship. The dog was practically glued to her 24/7, and I think it is a beautiful relationship. And in saying that, my mom took it really, really hard when the dog passed away. So understanding how deep animals can climb into our hearts, and that, yes, they do become like family. Jenetta, 2 extra children, and I'm sure they loved you as much as, or maybe more than, your kids do. Yes. Because I know that dog most probably loved my mom more than anything else, including itself.
Thank you, Caroline. I mean, Mariska.
I love that explanation.
And I have 2 hyenas that are loving all of us right again. It's about Monday nights, but they're here again.
So here's my next question to you. So when we think about the human connection, or we think about animal connection, how much of a connection do we have to have with ourselves where we don't actually require another human being or another animal? So in other words, we're good on our own. We realize we love human connection and animal connection, but during the pandemic, whatever the case may be, we had to tap into our own resources, into ourselves, instead of being dependent on someone else filling these needs that we had, and maybe we weren't aware that we weren't filling them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. One thing that I would think about is when you're in pain and you've been used to, let's say, going to have at the spa and having massage to help loosen the stress and the pain. So it's almost like you had to learn to like massage your neck and start to love yourself by giving yourself that hug, but also massage. I think is a connection for yourself where you ease the pain of something.
Okay.
I don't know.
That makes sense.
I mean, that's what I think.
Well, I observed during lockdown, because lockdown is such a wonderful case study, and I observed working with clients that a lot of them pre-COVID were pretty independent and didn't need that much human connection. But what they didn't realize is that when they lost the choice for that human connection, it was a different story completely. And so I think one can pace oneself when you know you've got choice. When that choice is taken away, it tends to leave you in a corner feeling a little trapped. And as you said, Madeleine, yeah, there are ways, and I'm sure that would have been a really good class to hold, saying, okay, so you've got no touch. So now these are the special ways to change the energy of your touch on you, and do it as a bit of a meditation. Something I didn't think about at the time, but definitely I noticed that that people got, even the most independent, got to a point after month 3, month 4, going, I can't do this because I really feel as though I've had all my ability to choose taken away.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. That makes, as soon as we know we don't have anything anymore, we lose something, then it becomes a different situation.
Yeah.
Let's go over to our therapist and see what she has to say.
Well, one of the things that I did was meditation. And I also did some dance meditations where I was literally groaning and going, yes, whoa, yes, while I was dancing. And
Sorry, parents.
I don't know what my neighbours must have been thinking. Had my music very loud. The person that was running the set as a shamanic dance, healing dance meditation, was for 3 hours, and he was in Goa. And it was absolutely incredible. And he got all the sound right, you know, and I had it beaming through my speakers. And it was extraordinary. I had my curtains closed, and I forgot I was alone. I forgot that there wasn't that physical connection, and I was in another space. I was totally in heaven, you know, as if I was in a dance floor, you know, filled with other people, because that was the dance meditation. And it was something that I truly missed when we went into that period of lockdown and not being able to go out and no events being running. And I was so appreciative of that time that, you know, some of the people went online and did the meditations and did, you know, sort of group healings. It was quite an exceptional experience because I didn't feel alone, because it was about reconnecting to myself in a much bigger way. And I did dig my heels in about Zoom. And she said, I don't want to do that. I just want to see people. I want to be with people. So it was partly my journey of moving through that difficult phase of always being out and doing things, and then actually going internal to find my own reconnection so that I felt whole again. And it was an extraordinary experience, because you don't know what you've lost until you've lost it, as JENETTA has said, and you really don't. And I had no appreciation of how it would have affected me until I'd had the experiences.
Thank you, Caroline. Appreciate that. So my next question is, when we think about owning pets, for example, there comes a lot of responsibility with that. When we think about being in a relationship on a regular basis, there's a lot of responsibility with that. Is there a responsibility with human touch when you offer a hug to someone, or you offer a shoulder to someone? Or is it just a nice thing to do that can then be forgotten and you can just move on with your life? How do you feel about that?
I'm just thinking about, in what you're saying, about the hug. Let's take, for example, we're at a pop concert, or you're at the person that you absolutely adore, and the fans are there, and they need to touch. They need to actually, they don't ask permission. They just reach out and touch the singer or the idol, who's ever, you know, or whoever big celebrity status is on the stage. The fan has to reach out and touch to feel connected to their idol, the person that they've been adoring all these years. And so for them, for the fan, it's like, wow, yeah, I touched him or her. Wow, I connected. I feel part of them. But on the negative side, that hug or that touch or that human connection is boosting the idol's ego. It's almost like two polar opposites, two chain reactions that's happening in one, two reactions that's happening with that one touch, with that one connection, that one, I don't know, that just came to my mind in the way that that's a negative and a positive of.
Now, what about this? I appreciate what you're saying. What if the celebrity, the performer, what if they don't want to be touched? What if they're tired of all these people pawing them? Or you think about politicians shaking all those hands, and where's that hand been? I mean, they could be. That's what I would be thinking, by the way. But so what if they're thinking about that? Another stranger touching me.
Well,
well, in some countries, there's a certain hand that they don't shake. They don't hold out their hand. Like, I think there was something about, I think it was Trump, and I can't quite alliterate the actual whole story or anything, but it wasn't it about, in certain countries, they have certain rituals and certain respect. So it's almost like one hand is for that and one hand is for the other. And if they shake with that hand that they use for that, that's considered a rude gesture.
I've heard of this for other explanations as well, which is
yes. Sorry, me and Caroline are just taking this down. We're just making it a triple X here.
I need to go out of the show. No, no, that's true. But so it is possible that while one person is really excited about the opportunity to touch and connect with another, that the other person doesn't feel the same way.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yes. I've actually had people, when they've shook my hand, I've said, do you know what? That didn't feel right. Do you mind if I give you a hug instead? And they're going, oh, yeah, I just didn't know what you felt about it. And so that permission thing, again, is quite vital. And some people are very reserved and they don't want to be touched, as you've said. And I also experienced during that period of the restrictions, where in Britain, particularly in the UK, we had an elbow hug, where we touched elbows or ankles. And I kind of joined in that, because I thought that, actually this is a new way to connect. And maybe some people feel much safer or much more whole in connecting in that way. So it gave a new level and a new insight to connecting and intimacy, because it brought laughter when, sort of we hugged with the ankles. And I just thought it was hilarious, but I wanted to play the game to feel what it felt like for me.
Thank you, Caroline.
That's what happened with my mom. I went to see my mom and she goes, hello, dear. I went, what are you doing that for? She says, I'm hugging you, dear. I'm hugging you. Well, Mom, I'm your daughter. I haven't seen you for ages. I know, dear, but we have to keep to the restrictions. We have to keep to the...
How did you feel about that, Madeline?
I felt she was taking things a bit too far. I thought, we're family, we're blood, but she had the mask on and, oh no, don't, and I kind of knocked her elbow just a little bit too much. Oh no, don't do that, dear. Don't do that, dear. It's COVID. I went, okay.
It could have been from what she was reading and watching that she was afraid, and that's how she reacted to it.
Yeah, it was.
I remember before COVID when I would go to church on a regular basis and we'd have to do peace be with you and everybody shaking hands, and I'd have the giant thing of Perel, and I think he just coughed before he shook my hand. Now my hand with his cough is going on to her, and the whole time I could not focus. And I was like, please God forgive me for having these thoughts. And I thought, why can't they just eliminate this whole part? Why can't it just be, hey, I hope you're doing well, nice to say hi, good to see. Why can't we do that? But I don't know, it goes on.
That's a good point, actually. When people do service or they're in church and they're giving out the bread and they're touching.
I know they're standing up there with the bread and he's blowing his nose. Please, hey, let me cut this bread in half. I'm like, Mom, did you just see that? I'm not going up.
Oh gosh.
Is it me? It's got to be me.
Now I'm really glad I don't go to church.
I went through it a lot. I went to a Catholic church, and I went and Church of England, and there was a lot of breaking the bread and drinking from the same cup as well.
Yeah. Or how about this? You go to, I don't know, let's just say a place where they're making sandwiches, or wherever, any place where they're wearing gloves, right? It's supposed to be sacred because they have the gloves on. I just went to a place to pick up food. The guy's wiping his nose with the gloved hand. I'm like, it's the same thing for a hand, but now it's the glove with the.
Did you say anything?
Yeah, I just said, I know I changed my mind. I don't want that anymore. By the way, we have Big Boss Lady with us. Nice to see you. Nice to have you with us.
Big Boss Lady.
And also, it's Katie.
Katie. I was going to say that's Katie, the singer, artist.
Katie. Yes.
Hey, Katie.
So when we come back to the power of human connection, what are each of you taking away, if anything, from this conversation today? Janetta, how about you?
That I don't have dogs that have to be the be all and end all, although I mean, they are pretty much our family, but not to the extent as I had. I learned that because I hadn't thought about it before. But overall, I just feel that human connection is personal, and each of us has a different way of wanting that connection, and it's about being able to tune into each other and be able to know what works for another person and what works for you. And when it's done from an open-hearted place, I believe that it works, and we all need it. No man is an island. We all need that connection in some form or another.
Excellent. Thank you. Great share. How about you, Mariska? What are your thoughts? And are you channeling Audrey Hepburn today?
Well, I have to agree with Jenetta in the connection, and that everybody needs to sort of first figure out what we need as connection ourselves. And then if you're not sure about what the other person needs, ask. Nothing wrong with asking. The other thing that I have learned is also be aware of the other person's sense of germophobia, because it might play a role in how they connect or how they do not connect. It reminds me of a TV series where there was I think it was a detective that did not enjoy germs a lot, so he literally walked around with one of these wee little bottles with antiseptic in his pocket, always. So he never shook hands with anybody either. And that's okay. Understanding that that is what that person requires before connecting will help us avoid social weirdnesses. So that's what I take away. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just a quick share. A zillion years ago, I was fixed up on a date with this guy, very well known in the city where I lived. And he picked me up in this car, and he had on these plastic gloves, and he had like a whole box of plastic gloves, and he was in a beautiful suit. I mean, and I thought to myself, okay, this is weird. This is years and years and years ago. So we went to the restaurant, and he put on a different pair of gloves. And then we got to the table, he put on a different pair of gloves. And I thought, I mean, I'm just going to be honest. Sorry, parents. I'm thinking, is this guy going to be wearing gloves? Like if he wants to touch me? And then I thought immediately, I knew I didn't want him touching me, so he could keep his own gloves on his own self. So in that case, I didn't have to ask any questions. This show's just been canceled. Okay, sorry.
It's going XXX.
Just imagine if it gets to that part and he goes, hold on, I need to change my
gloves.
It's a comic. It's a comic strip. It's a comic strip.
You've been out with some very interesting people, Dr. Jacqueline. Of course, I've had some interesting dates, but you really do cut the chase. One of the things that I would take from this is that it is important to absolutely respect and appreciate other people's needs and their personal space, especially in our changed times. Even more so, I feel that people are much more thinking about germs. But the other thing that I want to add to that is what I realized for myself, especially for myself, is that it's all about your own connection to yourself, your own connection to your heart. And in that space, then it's much easier to connect with others from your heart. So I totally endorse what Jenetta is saying about coming from your heart space. And that was where I went to get over the fact that I felt isolated and without people physically around me. I reconnected back to my heart through meditation, through my dance meditations, and I felt amazing. And then I was able to connect in a much bigger way on screen to people. And that's why we have a beautiful, loving relationship here. And we're not even in the same country.
It's so true. And Caroline, thank you for remembering the question, because I forgot what I asked everyone. So thank you for pulling it back around. Anything anyone wants to share before we close out the show? Dr. Chan, yes.
You know, my mind goes all zoo, zoo, zoo. I've just been thinking about, you know, when people had the visors on their on here on their eyes, and then they have the picture, and then they have somebody like not well, a touch or a hug or something that activates their sensory. So what I'm thinking about isn't that, I wonder if that's the same effect as someone physically touching rather than telepathically touching, or through artificial intelligence, creating that vibe, creating the feeling of touch without touching.
That sounds like a good subject for our next program.
I don't know where I went there. Oh, and for me personally, you know, on a really like down to 3D, literal down to, I'm going to start paying attention when I'm in a cafe, when people are preparing food for a sandwich, instead of me being on my phone or occupied in my own world, I'm actually going to look and see what they're doing with their hands, or if they've dropped the food and put the, I'm going to pay attention, because I didn't realize that. So thank you, Dr. Jacqueline, because I wasn't aware of that.
Well, something else for you to think about. When you go into the restroom in a restaurant, there's a sign everywhere, employees must wash hands. And someone comes out and they're like, and then they know, I'm like, yeah, I'm not sitting at that table with that person serving me. That's for sure. Oh my goodness. It's always fun to have some laughs. So thank you, girls. I appreciate it. We are closing out our show for today. We have all of your banners up. Let's just go around quickly. When I say quickly, a minute or less, and share one thing you want the audience to take away from you personally. Dr. Chan.
If anybody wants to get in contact with their soul, their creative self, awaken to their potential of who they can be in this life from a creative perspective, to awaken their soul voice, soul song, I'm there. So contact me. And there's many, many more things. So if you go on and contact me, I can let you know about other things, because we've only got 1 minute and we've got to share it around everybody.
And she has a new job, which is inspecting server etiquette, but she'll be busy with that. Caroline.
If you feel stressed, anxious, or depressed, and times when you think that you should be happy, or if you're having relationship issues or anger management issues, or if there's anything that is causing you some level of stress or anxiousness, reach out for a free consultation on Zoom, Skype, or indeed, if you want to just call, leave me a message if I don't connect straight away with you, and by emailing me at nomorestress@live.co.uk, or call +44 if you're international, 0 if you're local, 7523 120 189. I look forward to helping you bust your stress.
I just want to mention that you didn't put your phone number in the banner, so they don't have it. Can you type it in there, Caroline, please?
Right, okay.
Thank you. Okay, Mariska.
So, if you're a specialist and you want to learn how to connect and do some human connection with your team, no hugging required, you can contact me. So you can do that via my email, which is mariska@journey2discover.com, or alternatively connect with me via LinkedIn, and we can start our conversation and help you be a more human in your workspace.
Thank you, Mariska. And if you are looking for an Audrey Hepburn makeover, you can also contact Mariska as well. Janetta, what say you?
Well, I'd like to share something that some of our viewers and listeners might not know about, apart from the epiphany process where I assist people to start new internal conversations that are less conflicting. I also have World Jenny's Day, which is held every 10th of October to normalize and soften conversations around depression and suicide. And on the 15th of April, I would like you to come and join us and have the best fun you can have without having to put on a pair of gloves. And that is for a fundraising for World Jenny's Day. We've got 12 UK DJs getting together for a 12-hour marathon online. And each DJ has a different genre. And they take over at the top of each hour, and it's raising funds for World Jenny's Day. And we've done it previously with these UK radio DJs, well-known radio DJs, and it is foot tapping. You can't get off. I had people saying, I've got to go and cook dinner, but I'm not. Because it's just such good fun. So if you'd like to have the best fun ever without having to wear those gloves, then join us on the 15th of April from 9 in the morning till 9 p.m. at night. And I'm just having a quick look. The link is www.mixcloud, mixcloud.com/live/Longie, LONGIE. Come along. It's going to be such fun. Can't wait to meet you there.
Gloves are optional.
Yeah.
Can you please type the link into the chat? That would be great.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. And also we have Caroline's phone number here. So if you want to reach out for any number of reasons that she mentioned today, please go ahead. Okay. I have to close out because it's starting to. All right, we're having just too much fun here. Okay, I'm posting Janetta's link as well. And there you go. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for being here. We'll be back tomorrow with our next set of shows, which I can't remember actually what they are at the moment, but you can go to our website, usaglobaltv.com, and you can look at shows. Otherwise, just plan on showing up here tomorrow. Okay.
See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye. Bye.